angry, shouting, we were mad. So then Captain Kavika Kapahulehua had us sail along Kumukali, and along the coast of Maui and the north side of Molokai. Then he gave the order for us to sail into Kalapapa. Sailing to Kalapapa, he gave the order to trim the sails. And I was blowing my conch shell. The patients on land were just waving their shirts, popule, waving their towels. So we turned into Kalapapa Harbor. Kalapapa has a special place in Hawaiian history. It's a place where patients were sent after they were diagnosed with leprosy. The first patients were sent there in January of 1866 by order of King Kamehameha V. There was no other way to stem the tide of the epidemic of leprosy in the Hawaiian Islands except by isolation. Next slide. You see the students pointing out there? There's more to this picture than that. There's one student pointing way out. Just after the cliff goes steeply upwards, is the valley of Waikolo. So in January of 1866, the first patients were sent there, and that's where they had to survive. Keep in mind, they were diseased, they were dying, they were maimed, they had almost no one to care for them. That hike from Waikolo Valley to the top side here at Kalawao is a very difficult hike. I've hiked that several times. It's not just sand, it's boulders, and you've got to be careful where you step. Next slide. This is St. Damian's Church, but it's actually St. Philomena's Church. But this church is the church that's usually associated with St. Damian. Next. St. Damian, of course, was one of the greatest kokua at Kalawao. The others were individuals like Brother Dutton and St. Marianne. These were the kokuas. It's a special word that had such an important meaning in 19th century Hawaii. Kua means back. Ko means to provide your strength to that part of your back. In other words, someone who's going to be a helper. So who were the kokuas? Next slide. Next. I have not found a more poignant description, more spiritual description of the kokuas than that written by James Mitchell in Hawaii. Let me read it to you, all right? Kokua's board. This is the scene at the waterfront. From the waiting crowd, some dozen Hawaiians, men and women, stepped forward. They were the kokuas, that strange band of people who in Hawaii in the later years of the 19th century proved that the word love had a tangible reality. The police marshal asked, "Are you sure you know what you are doing in volunteering for the Lazaretto?" No one looking at the kokuas could have predicted that these people would have been so moved by aloha. Next. So let me. True, there were some old women whose lives were nearly spent, and it was understandable that they should join the leprous men with whom they lived so long. And then there were older men who had married young women, who had fallen prey to the disease, and it was also understandable that these men might prefer to remain with their girls. But there were also men and women of the most indiscriminate sort who climbed the gangplank to embrace other women and men of no apparent attraction whatever, so that the people on the dock had to ask themselves, why would a man in good health volunteer for the Lazaretto in order to be with such a woman? And to this question there was no answer except the word love. One of the kokuas history records was Hokela. 10 years of age, her parents were diagnosed with leprosy. Next slide. This is a photograph of her headstone. At 10 years of age, she was a kokua to her mother and to her father. Next slide. So, I've talked to you about the patients, about the kokuas, about the epidemic. Was that it for the Imi Ho'ōla students to get the feel of? Far more than that. Linda Nahulu was a graduate of Imi Ho'ōla, and we were planning a trip there for that weekend. She came to me and said, Dr. Young, can I invite my father? I said, sure, of course, but I needed to know why. And she said, because we want to locate the grave of my great-great-grandmother. So with the help of Richard Marks, we were able to locate the grave of Linda Nahulu's great-great-grandmother. Her name was Kamakahukilani Nahulu. Here's another word that's so special in Hawaiian culture, Nahulu. On the surface, Na is plural, Hulu means feathers. So it simply means the feathers. But the other meaning for it is that Nahulu was those precious feathered documents in ancient Hawaii. They were the most precious item that anyone could own because it was made from such rare birds. But it even went beyond that. Nahulu then symbolized the most precious relationship to the Hawaiians, grandparents. Next. Could you go back to that one? So you could see that the headstone here is taking its toll from the winds and the rains and the salt air. And you can read this fairly well, Kamakahukilani Nahulu. Next slide. Another graduate from Imi Ho'ōla was Nolan Aruda. And you can barely read this, his ancestors' headstone. It almost seems like it's 1943. Next. Over 8,000 were sent to Kalapapa, and I hope that impresses with you the significance of this place that I wanted to impress upon Imi Ho'ōla students. Of the 8,000, 90% were Hawaiians. Next slide. Some of those tombstones were very readable. You wonder about the story behind this tombstone here? In memory of baby Clara, who's buried there at Kalapapa. And this on the right, you can't read it anymore. Next. I wrote a song, and I called it The Fields of Kalapapa. Next slide, you can play it.
In the fields of Kalapapa and on Kalawaho's plains, I discovered many headstones, all exposed to winds and rain. As I wandered through that sacred place, some questions filled my mind. Who were all those souls resting there? Why were families left behind? Painful circumstances changed their lives, imprisoned for being ill. Unknown thousands sent to Molokai. It drained the nation's will. As I struggled to decipher all those markings filled with sun, then I realized those faded marks were names only known to
Okay, I wanted to leave you in an upbeat.
Wow, this is a nice voice.
And next slide. I call it the Dreamers. I have three groups in this song. The Maka'ainanas, the people who came from scattered across the oceans, and then finally those from war-torn countries. Maka'inana is a word that many of you might not know. Maka means high, ainana, to the ground. It refers to the common people, the everyday person in Hawaii. So who were some of those Maka'inana in Imi Ho'ōla? Next slide. Nalinadraddy was one of them. We needed our property level, and so the architect said, you know, there's only one guy who's really that good with the bulldozer, and so he hired that guy, and afterwards, around lunch period, we're talking, and he said, oh, what do you do? Well, I didn't want to tell him I was a doctor, he would charge me more. So I said, I work at the university, I don't make very much money. And he said, what do you do? So I said, oh, I'm trying to put together this program, and explained it to him. He said, you know, my granddaughter might be interested in that. And so that's how I met Nalinadraddy. So Nalinadraddy then rose up to the rank to become chair of psychiatry at Jabson, and she became chair of the board for Queens Health System. You heard the story of Imi Ho'ōla? I called her my vacuum cleaner Imi Ho'ōla student. We bought the vacuum cleaner, and we graduated an Imi Ho'ōla student. And then Angela Pratt, how does she fit in as a Maka'inana? Because her mother worked as a waitress at Pro City Tavern, and her mother's here. I'm the chairman of OBGYN at Kapilani Medical Center, and she's the outgoing president of HMA. Next slide. I show you these 5 students here with Jill. So sorry, Jill cannot make it tonight. But these 5 students are medical students for this year, medical students, and it's exactly 50 years from the time the first student was admitted, Chiomi Fukino, to these 5. I think they're here tonight. Are you here? Yeah, Deidre is. There's more than meets the eye in this picture. Queens Hospital was founded in 1859 by Queen Emma and King Kamehameha IV. All these years, few people even remember one of the main reasons why Queens Hospital was founded. It was founded because of the need to improve the health of women. So this tells you the story behind this photograph, how wonderful it is that these 5, so many years after the founding of Queens Hospital and Queens Medical Center, these 5 were granted full tuition to Jabson by Queens Medical Center. Next slide. So I talked about the Maka'inanas. The next is from the ocean scattered peoples. Who were they? These are only some of them. I couldn't fit all those photographs in there. With a name like Kelly, you ought to guess that she's Irish. She is, and her ancestors came from South of Air, her Polynesian ancestors. But she and Charlene TV have ancestors dating back to the terrible famine of 1845 in Ireland, the tomato blight. And their ancestors survived that terrible epidemic. You have people like Dale Bartolome from the Philippines, Damon Tavares, Portugal, Chiomi Fukino, Japan, Jessica Yu in China, Marie Tantano, Guam, Ben Aldan, Northern Marianas, Brian Isaac, Kosrae, Stevenson Forte, Palau, Eddie Soliai, Samoa, and Meng Nguyen, Vietnam. Next slide. So I gave you the examples of Maka'inana, those from ocean scattered people. Next slide. And the third group from the fields of war-torn countries. Who were they? There were several. But I show you here 2 of them, Tuan Lam from Vietnam and Sang Seng from Cambodia. And this is the book that he wrote, Starving Season. You may have missed it, but in that clip that showed Sang, he mentioned that when the Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge came to power, he was the only one of 24 members of his family that walked out of Cambodia alive. None of his family survived. Next slide. Okay, so here's the song that I wrote, and the more uplifting spirit I wrote about Imi Ho'ōla as the Dreamers. Could you play it?
From Hawai'i, Maka'inana, from the ocean scattered peoples, from the fields of war-torn countries, dreamers came to seek to heal. Lend a helping hand, restore the lives, improve the health throughout the land. Lend a helping hand, restore the lives, improve the health throughout the world. Improve the health of the world.
Okay, so mahalo pa'ole, thank without end. 50 years of Imi Ho'ōla. The name of the company that we put together is now Hawai'i, the People's Health. A program like this is not successful without so many individuals. I want to thank the chanters. Whenever I had a request for them, they always said yes. Diane Paloma, Dr. Diane Paloma, Dr. Kalani Brady, Dr. Angela Pratt. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for those who are behind the scenes. Those instructors like Dr. Ha, so many others who helped out without much glory, without being in front of the camera. And one was a very special person who helped us so much over the years, and that's Karen Sakamoto, teaching the students learning skills. So the next is 1 hour documentary, and remember, I'm half Pake, so I'll be coming to you for some money to help us put that film together. Thank you very much.
One time, I'm talking Dr. Young. Dr. Young, let's give him just a second. One time, I'll applause for Dr. Young. And now you're up here, and you have everyone to see that we're very excited to do these special announcements with Dr. Young here on stage. As we all know, Dr. Ben Young has played an instrumental role in the program establishment, and through his leadership roles at JAPSOM, Dr. Young has touched the lives of countless physicians, and for that achievement, a new endowment is being created through the generosity of Dr. Osamu Fukuyama and his wife Edwina, along with Dr. Thomas Hosasa and his wife Mai. Now, this endowment, family and friends, has been established to perpetuate the mission of the Imi Ho'ōla program for the next 50 years and beyond. This endowment will afford the program additional resources to not only maintain the program's reach, but also to allow the advancement and acceleration of the program in all that it does. Now, we are so excited to commemorate the momentous occasion. The Imi Ho'ōla classroom within the JAPSOM Medical Education Building will also be named in honor of Dr. Ben Young. Congratulations. Lots of noise. What an achievement. Yes. One more time, round of applause. Thank you so much. Lots and lots of people, Dr. Young has paved the way for